Welcome, Rambier here. I'm at San Jose Barbell right now. Obviously, as you can see, we got some construction going on. We're changing a lot of things, all thanks to this opportunity provided by the coronavirus for us to do all of this stuff. So anyways, let's get into it today. So this is the unconventional guide to casein protein. One of the things I used to say, you don't need casein. And whey protein is good enough, and that is true, and I'll get to that actually in a second. But recently I introduced it back into my diet, so I'm going to go over the reasons why. So let's get into it. First of all, what is casein? Okay, so casein is a milk protein. Basically, when you take out the carbs and the fats and the whey, what you're left with is casein. Okay, so that's what casein protein is. Now, so what are some of the reasons that I brought it back and I'm actually thoroughly enjoying it? One of them is because I get hungry. I get really hungry, and so casein has a higher effect, more of an effect on your satiation or your satiety, right? That's a fancy way of saying how full you feel. So you don't feel the hunger. And if you're trying to get very lean or stay lean, you're gonna have periods of where you're hungry. And so if you have casein, you're not going to get as hungry, okay? So that's one of the big reasons that I really like it. The reason being for this, obviously, it's going to take up space in your stomach, and it's not going to leave your stomach for a while. A lot of people kind of confuse, like, oh, it absorbs slowly. What's more than likely that's happening is that it kind of sits in your stomach longer because it curdles, and that's kind of where you get that benefit of it, going into your bloodstream slower, but also making you feel more full, okay? And so that leads me to the second point of the slower absorption, right? And so basically when casein protein enters a environment of water, it's what we would call hydrophobic, or that's just a fancy way of saying that it doesn't mix well with water. It kind of balls up. And so that causes it to enter into the bloodstream slower. And they've actually found that, it can take, especially when you mix it in with some type of fat. So like if you mix peanut butter into a casein shake, so there's a high fat content there, that it can take up to 10 hours for it to, there will be protein entering the bloodstream up to 10 hours after you ingest it, right? So that's a good thing. Obviously, the reason for that is because when you're trying to build muscle or preserve muscle, you want protein to be in your bloodstream all the time. So, the whole thing about eating smaller meals throughout the day, that's not really too relevant anymore. But if you're trying to squeeze out all the juice and really maximize everything, you want to have protein entering your bloodstream, throughout the day. So having several protein feedings in the day is very, very helpful for that. Now, another benefit, for me, this actually doesn't matter, but there's a lot of people who are lactose intolerant. And so casein is, a lot of times, there is no lactose. So for those people who have problems with whey or, milk, this is going to be a much better option. And I've heard also some people that, who are lactose, but then if they have like Greek yogurts or something like that, they don't have that same effect. So that's something also to think about in terms, and again, high in protein. So that's another benefit. Now, why is this the unconventional guide to casein? The reason for that is because all these things are great, but don't put the cart before the horse. That is the number, and I just kind of realized that you probably can't even read these because that's so small. But anyways, don't put the cart before the horse, okay? None of these benefits matter and the assumption here is going to be that we're trying to lose body fat and build muscle. So we're trying to look better, okay? None of these benefits or anything of that nature matters if you aren't in a calorie deficit, if you're trying to lose fat, right? And if you're not getting enough total protein, like it won't matter. And then the third thing is, like, it won't matter if you're not consistent in tracking. how much you're eating and how much, are you really in a calorie deficit. It also won't matter if you're not really training. Like, you have to do those things. So the things that I would recommend, like, get these things in order before you start looking at, casein powders or, supplements or gear or anything like that. It's like, am I tracking my calories regularly? Am I making good decisions like JERF, which is just eat real foods, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins? Because what that will allow me to do is it will allow me to keep my calories low and have my belly full. So, if you're trying to lose body fat, you're going to be hungry. And so it's to your advantage to eat things that don't take up a lot of your calories, but do take up a lot of space in your stomach and make you feel more full. That's to your advantage. Are you drinking enough water? Because if you're not, then, we got other things to worry about than, what's the best casein protein powder, right? And then if you're not training, you're gonna end, like, even if you're in a calorie deficit, you're just gonna end up being skinny fat. Like, you want to do some type of strength training so you can start to develop the muscles on your body. So it's not only going to help you look better, because that's where your shape comes from, but it's also going to aid in your health. It's going to aid in how you can move, your ability to live life and absorb more life. That's something that, I really have, is important to me. It's like, the stronger I become, the more muscle I have and the more strength I have, I can absorb more life, right? More things are possible the stronger I become. So those things are super important. Like, these are all great, but don't put the cart before the horse. Get your water, make sure you're working out regularly, be consistent. You don't need to do crazy things. You just got to be consistent. JERF, just eat real food, walk 10,000 steps. And then I'll say the biggest, most important thing is none of this stuff matters if you don't have compassion or kindness to yourself. I used to say, like, you need to have compassion for other people. Like, I think that's all great, but more importantly is just dial it in even more and have compassion towards yourself. Because if you have compassion towards yourself, you're gonna have compassion for other people. So those would be my big keys, and why, it's so important. Like, you can look at all the information, that's great, but don't put the cart before the horse. I will see you guys later.